now coming back together, I want to put this back on the whole crowd here. We talked about 2024, you thought about that. Now I want you to think back to one other thing. Think back to the beginning of this year, January 1st, first week of January, 2025. And my guess is that for a lot of us here, we probably had some level of optimism, right? We're thinking to myself, oh, okay, this is the year things are going to break my way. This is the year that business is going to take off for me. This is the year where things are finally going to go right for me. Maybe last year was tough, but this year's going to be better. Right? For all of us, we probably had that level of optimism, which is great. But let's fast forward a couple months. Okay, and the next thing you know, maybe you're at, I don't know, late March, possibly the 27th in Philadelphia. And that optimism that you had the first week of the year has now taken a back seat to frustration, anxiety, disappointment. And not only that, but those same problems that you had last year are still staring you square in the face. And the interesting thing after that is that you give it a few more months of that frustration, and the next thing you know, you can't see anything except for that problem in your life. I think we've all been there before, where you're completely blinded by whatever it is that you're dealing with, personal, professional. And my question is, what do you do about that? How do we reverse this type of thinking and take the power back that these destructive things have over us and put it back in our hands? Well, I've got 2 steps that are going to start you off with that. Now, there's a lot of ways we could go about this, but I got 2 things because that's what we have time for, and that's what I think is appropriate here. The first 2 things to help us take that power back begins with number 1, acceptance, and number 2, realization. So let's dive into this here. When I say acceptance, look, I'm not saying, oh, I'm throwing in the towel, I'm waving the white flag, I'm just going to admit that nothing's ever going to go right for me, and oh, well, that's not what I'm talking about. That's for the bin, man. Nope, that's not what we're doing. When I say acceptance, here's what I mean. We need to come to a point where we accept that we cannot control every single aspect of life all the time. Right now, a lot of you are really successful people in here. I saw the numbers, I saw the names up there, okay? I know you're successful, and I know how successful people work. They like to control everything. Sometimes. But the quicker that we realize we can't control every aspect, the quicker we can move to step 2, which is that realization. And realizing that, look, yes, we cannot control everything in our lives, bet. But what we can control is how we choose to respond to these different events and circumstances that we face on a daily basis. That is our choice. And what does that do, friends? That puts the power back in our hands, rather than giving the power all the way back to those struggles and to those different obstacles that we face. So it starts with realization. It starts with acceptance and realization.